The game has been in development too long. The game doesn't have the necessary middle management departments. The game doesn't have enough expensive consultants and marketing. The game doesn't do enough different from the previous entry. This game is too low priced. It's gonna cause trouble for other indie devs. We must not allow it to do well, for a time when a cancellation could stick. Let us all take a moment right now. We should all thank the games media for their service. Because as long as they are doing their duty, the rest of the gaming community can rest easily, knowing our own garbage takes on Twitter will still look like Einstein compared to these reprobates. They set the bar for the high jump championship so low, a 400-pound Reddit mod in a mobility device could win silver. Games media's job is to come up with excuses for why the AAA corporate games they are paid to shill for have all failed, to come up with any and every reason other than the one that the gaming audience is giving them, the one that is actually why their games keep failing. The job of games media is to lie to you, but more importantly, to lie to the industry and major games corporations. And for well over a decade, they did that job very well, ensuring that the desires of the people who buy and play video games would never reach the ears of the people making those games. Due to the corrupt cartel between journalists, extortion consultants, and DEI hires, in HR and management, the games industry has spent multiple generations making games meant for nobody, killing off every major, well-loved franchise to the point where their remakes and remasters of 20-year-old games are doing better than the brand new entry in the same series. So we get told when games like Concord come out that they just didn't have enough time to make the game good. They had almost a decade. They didn't have enough money to make the best game. They had $500 million. They didn't have enough support. They had hundreds if not thousands of employees. It didn't embrace the repugnant social religion of wokeness enough. It was just not hateful enough towards the people who buy games for it to be a success. I mean, come on. Excuses like Concord came out at a time when there was too much competition in hero shooters. The game came out when Overwatch 2 was at its worst. They basically had it on a silver platter, the best timing possible, and the game's media was proven beyond a doubt to be lying on this when just a few months later, Marvel Rivals comes out and knocked it out of the park, bases loaded. We are told constantly, over and over, that the games that keep failing have any excuse except the developers making a bad game that has horrible characters and stories, almost always due to their obsession with making stories and characters that hate their main audience and push ideologies that nobody agrees with. A rising tide raises all ships, but a woke captain sinks them. A quote from Napoleon Bonaparte's famous book, The Art of War. Silksong is just one more game in the Indian AA market besides Baldur's Gate 3, Vampire Survivors, Stellar Blade, Wukong, Schedule 1 that is made by one person to a small, dedicated team that brings up the industry, raises our expectations of indie games, and makes everyone ask, why the flip-flop can't AAA do the same? Because Silksong doesn't have a huge budget. Silksong has 3 devs. It doesn't have some advanced super graphics technology. It doesn't have some obnoxious consultants threatening to ruin them. It didn't pay off the media, and it didn't try to do something drastically different or embrace some multiplayer microtransaction strategy. Silksong didn't do the things that they tell you will succeed. And Silksong did do the things that they want you to believe will cause games to fail. And if you're wondering, yes, Silksong the Knight's Hollow is indeed an H game. How do we know? Well, they put their noses down and just made a game without getting involved in flame wars with their audience. Getting hard. They kept this sucker to $20 despite it being a game that would have clearly sold like crazy at $40. Working that shaft. They announced the game with just 2 weeks' notice, made by 3 people. No cares for how much anticipation there has been and how long people have been bloodborning over whether it even exists or is more vaporware. Oh gods, I'm arriving! And to top it all off, the cherry on top of the perfectly crafted caramel sundae, the Lady of the Lake to the Holy Sword Excalibur, buried so deep in the hole of that stone, even God himself could not tear me from it. They did not give journalists advanced copies. Ladies and gentlemen, Houston, we have liftoff and it's leaving atmosphere with the force of 1,000,000 suns. A wise man once said, "It is not enough that I am to succeed, but to know that others have failed." Watching the Lion Games media and their AAA corporate studio butt buddies flop around like dead fish, oh, it is a thing of beauty. Because the story going into this one that they were spreading was a hype was gone. They took too long. They missed their window. They strung us along with the rumor of Silksong far too long. And people had lost interest. It could never live up to the hype. Game hit 500,000 concurrent on Steam in a day. But the media doesn't want to lose on this, so they're doing their Baldur's Gate 3 thing yet again. Acting like it is wrong for gamers to start expecting that other indie games, or AAA for that matter, are able to make a game this good and sell it at a price this good on this small of a budget. First of all, just like with Baldur's Gate 3, well, it seems your terms are not acceptable. When someone sets the bar, we might not expect everyone to hit that bar, but we damn well are going to expect people to try to hit it. And this is a problem with AAA. It is clear you are not trying. Surely, y'all remember the actual devs from major AAA studios coming out to try and temper future expectations, to claim that Baldur's Gate 3 was an anomaly, that Elden Ring was an anomaly that the industry cannot replicate. How do these studios with more money, more staff, more ability to attract talent, more marketing, respected franchises with built-in fans, everything in their favor, that silver spoon, possibly make a game up to the same quality as 3 people? Look, indies are in a bit of a difficult situation. It's reasonable to not expect them to all be able to make a game like Silksong. If delaying your indies to avoid Silksong is necessary, feel zero shame for it. Look, AAA is doing the same thing for GTA. There's nothing wrong with that. No indie should feel ashamed. The opposite, actually. You should be doing everything you deem necessary to succeed. Never feel guilted when you increase your odds of winning. Getting salty about it, however, as games media is doing on behalf of their corporate friends, does you no good. All this stuff about Silksong hurting indies or damaging price expectations is their expected brand of pathetic. They are unhappy Silksong is doing well, so this is their way of trying to taint the game with negativity. Just as they did when they were calling Wukong and Stellar Blade sexist because those did not pay the extortion fees. Or, on the other hand, when a corporation does pay the consultants, the media attacks the audience for not buying the games, like your Concord, Veilguard, AC Shadows. If you buy the games they don't want you to, or don't buy the games they do, the media is always going to be there to make sure you know the audience is always wrong. Next, let's talk the suggestion that Silksong at $20 means any indie at $20 or more is going to look bad value to gamers. This is just false. To be blunt, this has never happened. This is their way of trying to draw an equivalency between Silksong at $20 and some other indie at $30 to the industry narrative the media and AAA companies are trying to push around how necessary $100 games are, how they are glazing the idea of GTA at $100. $100 GTA is not the same thing as Silksong being $20 or $40. If this line of thinking had any water, nobody would have bought a full-price AAA game after Elden Ring came out. A game that can easily give 500 plus hours of quality gameplay, one of the only 10 out of 10 games of the last decade. Games like Stellar Blade, Wukong, Wu Chang, Metaphor, Marvel Rivals, and Silksong have all come out since. And at dollars per value, were any of them up to Elden Ring? Likely not, but they can still all be games you can say you greatly enjoyed for the money you spent, that you can be proud of buying. A masterpiece releasing doesn't stop people from buying games. Games that aren't as loved as Silksong are going to keep coming out and being enjoyed. We didn't stop buying RPGs after Chrono Trigger and Final Fantasy VI, or Metroidvanias after Symphony of the Night and Super Metroid. Can it be demoralizing? Of course. It's reasonable to spend years developing a game, intending to price it in the $30 range, and then dread Silksong comparisons. But that's reality. Look, Vampire Survivors is even cheaper and has insane replay. But when it came out, you saw dozens of games just like it pop up. Some cheap copycats, of course, but some of them were fantastic games as well. A great game coming out is not going to stop people from buying other great, but maybe not as great games. It never has. It will cause comparison, like every Souls-like is compared to Dark Souls. And if you make a side-scrolling, challenging game with similar combat and exploration, yes, you're probably going to be compared to Silksong. But instead of sulking and talking about how that's going to hurt you, consider the opposite. Dark Souls' popularity drove people to start loving and craving games just like it to fill the gaps. And now we have games like Code Vein, Neo, both which ended up with sequels, Lords of the Fallen, Stranger of Paradise. We could also look at Dark Souls as pushing diverse offshoots, like the revitalization of roguelikes, side-scrollers like Salt and Sanctuary, Blasphemous, and, well, Hollow Knight itself. We even got Remnant, a co-op shooter. A rising tide raises all ships. Bringing out an indie game that is like Hollow Knight, look, there were 8 years between it and Silksong. No matter how much those people love those games, do you think they're just going to be playing those two for the next 8 years? You think they're not going to want to play another game that's just like it in that time period? If anything, you should be thinking the opposite. Your game is like Silksong. Use those coattails to provide an alternative for people who loved it, so they have a gap filler until Hollow Knight 3 comes out in 2031. If you can make a good game, use the industry to push attention towards it. Plant a flag on Hollow Knight and use it to your benefit. Do not fear it. And this is exactly what all this negativity around the release and Silksong damaging indie game prospects wants you to believe. Instead, look at the positive. Big successes in gaming are better for everyone. And sure, you may want to avoid the immediate release date of Silksong or GTA, but this is all to say that the media's desire to push this as something that will hurt indies frankly makes zero logical sense. Right now is the best time in history to be an indie developer. Silksong's success is a great thing. It throws most of the lies and excuses the industry uses into disarray, and it really puts emphasis on making a great game and having a good relationship with your audience. This injects hope into the games industry, so for more positivity on the surge between indie and AA games, like, comment, and subscribe. We are all for this change in the games landscape that AAA incompetence has given us all. I apologize for absolutely nothing.